Back taking to the stage at 2:30. The man himself won't be on stage until later this evening though. Event controller Eamon Fox said Slane gigs are a rite of passage.
From our point of view, I like Harry Styles audiences because they do what we tell them. They're very, very compliant. They want the information and they go where they tell them and manage it that way. So from our point of view, I'm hoping that they'll have a whole new generation to come to Slane because it is a pilgrimage. It is an experience that people do. It's a lifetime experience even for Harry Styles.
It most certainly is. It's 3:02.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Release your dad bod this summer with low-fare flights to Ibiza, Malaga or Zadar.
Cloudy today with hazy sunshine and scattered showers. Sunnier in the north with highs of 19 to 24 degrees. Now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
And welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5. Just to go through some scores from around the world of sport. Iga Świątek has taken the first set against Karolina Muchova 6-2 at the French Open. The women's singles final, Shelbourne 3, Wexford Youths 0 at Talca Park half time. Jessie Stapleton, Hannah Healy and Christy Gray on the mark for Shels. 2-12 for Cork, 1-18 for Dublin. A win for Dublin in the minor football quarter final at Nolan Park. And we'll keep you right up to speed on the other games which are throwing in this afternoon. This is Football Saturday. All the way now until 5. You can text us 53106, tweet us at Off the Ball. We're streaming the conversation. Listen across the country on News Talk. Also watch us if you'd like on the digital and social channels for Off the Ball on Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. We also podcast the show on the Off the Ball section of the Go Loud network every week, so it's also available on demand wherever you get your pods if you ever missed a live broadcast on News Talk. Joined in the studio by the Cobh Ramblers manager Shane Keegan and the broadcaster and journalist Johnny Ward. How are you both?
All good, JD. Yourself?
All the better for the clobber you're wearing.
It's
very snazzy today.
It's my Pep Guardiola tribute. I'm a full milk tray.
I like it.
So it's a black t-shirt and a black blazer. Unfortunately, I don't have Pep Guardiola's salary, but we can always make the appeal.
Maybe you're happier.
No, where you were going to go. There was a lot of endings that could have come with that sentence.
Is he happy? Do you think?
Is anybody happy?
Yeah,
he looks pretty happy.
He's always
He'll be happier tonight if they win.
I don't think he's ever content. Like, he's always striving for the next thing. Like, that maybe makes him.
He's one of those fellas, I would imagine, who's only happy when he's unhappy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Know, if he was happy, he'd be, why am I happy? I need to go after the next thing. So he's only ever happy when he's unhappy, really, for me.
We're also joined on the line from Turkey by Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent. Dan, how are you?
Hi guys, how are things?
Dan, you're in Turkey, but you're not at the final.
Yeah, like I'm in the heart of the football action, or the country that's the heart of the football world at the moment, JD. But yeah, just I think 500 kilometres away from where it's all kicking off in Istanbul. I did see, so I'm in Antalya because Ireland have their training camp here ahead of the Greece game next Friday. But I got a little bit of the Champions League buzz coming through the airport. There were some Inter Milan fans who were clearly figuring their way there via various connections. But there we go. Yeah, I have a history of Champions League finals through the prism of Ireland training camps and like weird Ireland trips. Like, I can almost remember where I was for a lot of the Champions League finals on the basis of where Ireland were. Like the John Terry penalty, I think we were in Portugal for some training camp when Trapp was coming in, and just a couple of other ones like that. So that's the nature of the gig.
What's the week been like over there?
Well, I've only just arrived, so I think it's been good so far for them. From the vibes are okay, but the weather might be taking a turn in the next couple of days. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. So I suppose the whole point of a warm weather training camp is that you're able to train in the warm weather. There's some talk of thunderstorms. I'm not sure if it's going to happen or not, but they were playing. There's an 11v11 game in house today. There was meant to be a sort of some kind of behind closed doors friendly, but that didn't quite come to pass. So it's next Friday. It's sort of creeping up around the corner for us here.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a bit more as the show goes on. Have you been to many Champions League finals for work?
I've just been to one. I was at the Munich Dortmund one in 2013, and again that was because Ireland were playing in Wembley 4 days later. It was just right place, right time. It's just the way it is. It's always Ireland are always in camps. So like I've been in New York and various places for the Champions League final, but not really at them ourselves. I think clearly you'd speak to maybe a couple of lads who are a little bit older who would have been at Istanbul, say, because you had Steve Finnan, and you go back then a little bit to 99, and there was obviously a big Irish presence. But I suppose from my perspective, like, you're obviously covering the Irish team, so Champions League wise, no pressure on Evan Ferguson, obviously, but if he could get himself up to that level, that'd be quite nice in terms of some high-end Champions League games for sure.
The biggest club game in the world.
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Been to anyone?
No, and it's definitely something I'd like to get to know. All right, yeah. You haven't, have you?
No, well, somebody was looking for tickets tonight, and I'd have a contact in England, like, but he was saying it's 1,350 quid.
It's very specific.
1,300, yeah, 1,350 sterling, whatever that is in euro. So it's expensive, and I don't know, like, Man City wouldn't be the best supporter team by any stretch, but I've never been. No, I'm not sure I've even been to a Champions League group game, although I did see one of the players tonight playing against Shamrock Rovers in Tala. So that's been my connection to this, but no, I haven't been. It's on the bucket list.
I can't remember what I actually did have a last minute option of one. Who played Champions League final in Munich?
It was Chelsea and Bayern Munich.
Was it? I was at Wexford at the time, and the famous Mick Wallace being Mick.
That'd be Mick Wallace.
Mick got a couple of literally last minute tickets, and he was literally, as he does, just flying out with a bag of gear and going to the game and staying in the airport overnight and flying back the next day. But at that stage I had something else on that was stopping me.
That was my takes.
Being able to go. I don't think I even knew you back then. You didn't. I wasn't a high pro. You only wanted to say hello to me when I took over at Galway. I was a nobody in the world of Johnny Ward.
I didn't really want to know you.
Definitely wouldn't say hello to me in the second year.
It is mad sometimes you get these last minute kind of options, go to things, and it happens. But I would love to go, alright, and like Istanbul, I know Dan's not there. Istanbul is a fantastic city. Like, it's a great place to have a final.
It is a beautiful city. I was there, but I don't know if I want to be there now with the way it's run at the moment. Turkey, I'm not so sure.
Well, it was an interesting article Ken Early had in the Times today about, like, the big mosque in the square, how, you know, Erdogan is wants to impose the regime on this, and you know, that strong sense of Islam on the people, and the way that Istanbul has changed, as you say.
Yeah, I was there 15 years ago. I was actually the same Champions League final Dan was at, the Munich Dortmund one. Just remember all of the fans going together on the tube to the game.
Oh, JD
at Wembley.
Yeah, I went to Galatasaray Fiorentina in a pre-season game, and the tube out to Galatasaray Stadium was honestly one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen, because, like, if you fall on that line, like, it's electric, so you're basically dead, and like the crush to get on the tube was amazing. And then the atmosphere at the game for a pre-season, I was like, what is it like for an Istanbul derby? Like, it must be, and they are absolutely fanatical about football. It's totally different. The experience is just like, it never leaves you, and that was a friendly. I would love to go back for the Galatasaray Fenerbahce game must be on the bucket list. You'd wonder if there's a good actually neutral support there this evening, as you say, from obviously a lot of corporates, weren't there? For City against Inter. We'll get to this now, and then we'll obviously bring in Dan about Ireland as well, but obviously bring Dan on this game. In everybody's minds, they've won this, City. Now, there's still a match to be played, but in everybody's minds, it's over.
Yeah, I think they're the heaviest favourites of the last decade or more, I think, all right, going into it, aren't they? And look, you can understand why, JD. I mean, they've just looked absolutely unbeatable and scintillating in every respect over the last, what are we talking now, 2 to 3 months almost, since they clicked into gear, and probably since he's found a reasonably settled 11 as well. I mean, you look back to some of the teams he was picking earlier in the year, and it was very, very surprising, some of the names that were been left out at the time, people like Ruben Diaz and different people like that. But I mean, would you have thought 6 months ago that City would be heading into a game and everybody would be pretty much nailed on with the starting 11? Now, maybe he'll spring a surprise, but I would be very, very surprised if we can't all name the starting 11, which is absolutely not a trait of Pep Guardiola at Manchester City since he's come in there. You'd be guessing right up until the last minute and waiting to see what curveball he's going to throw now. But this one seems to be nailed on. I think everybody can pretty much go through it and can go through exactly the manner in which they will try and play. But of course they're favourites, and yeah, if I had to stick my neck out and say who I think would win, I would say I think they would win. I wouldn't have them as short as the bookmakers have them. like it's you look at Inter, and for me, if you're going to play against Manchester City, the problem a lot of teams have at Champions League level is they're coming into a game against Manchester City where they're used to playing in their own domestic league where they have the majority of the ball, and now all of a sudden you have to come up with a game plan where you don't have the majority of the ball and you need to learn a whole maybe different style and a different way about going things very, very quickly. This Inter Milan team have spent the entire season playing without the ball. They are perfectly happy to play without the ball. They've had less than 40% possession in the vast majority of their games. They had 30% possession against Porto in the quarter-final. They are set up exactly in the way that a team needs to be set up to stand a decent chance against Man City, in my opinion. And it's a mad one, but like, if you were to compare the way they've gone about things to any team in the Premier League, the most comparable one is Brentford.
Yes.
And what team have given Man City the most problems in the Premier League?
Well, forget about the second game, but the first game at the Etihad, they had only 25% possession. They were very aerial, they were very direct, they pressed, they almost went over the top of City, I felt, when watching that game. Yep. Maybe that's the and they also had two up front. And they will have they'll have the two up front again tonight, which even in itself raises a bit of a question mark for Pep, because, you know, when they're building out, they only like to leave kind of two at the back, really. So they do, knowing that the opposition will only ever really have one up there, but these will do it. They will absolutely defend with 8. They'll sit off, and the 8 will be in a really low block, but the other 2 will stay up, and that even in itself is kind of an interesting one for City to wrap their heads around. I think tactically, I think it could be absolutely fascinating. The obvious problem here is
City don't want to score early.
If City score early, what do Inter do then? Like, what the hell do Inter do then? But the longer it's in the balance, and the longer City start to throw extra bodies forward and start to take more chances and stuff like that, that's when Inter will really, really fancy their chances of picking them off on the counter-attack. Team-wise, I mean, it's probably, I think the majority of the team picks itself for them. I think it's 2 from 3 up top, and it's really 1 from 2, because Martinez will definitely start. But
probably with Dzeko, and then you got obviously Romelu Lukaku, who's well known to Premier League supporters.
Yeah, Dzeko seems to be the better option alongside Martinez, in that they seem to have had a better partnership all year. But for the team that they're playing against, and the fact that they're going to have to try and counter and run in behind, I wouldn't be surprised.
Imagine Romelu Lukaku scores the winning goal.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It's doable. That'd be cool. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. I think he is. Again, I think horses for courses. I think he's the better horse for this course.
What's caught your interest, Dan, around this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, firstly, the main interest is trying to find a reason that it's going to be interesting, you know, and sort of Shane sort of lays it out there well. I mean, I do like the angle of Lautaro Martinez. When you think, probably go back to Qatar, and he had a bit of a nightmare, really, for large parts of that tournament. But still won the competition, like still part of the most incredible experience of your life. And what a year it would be sort of 6 months later for him to come back and to be involved in the World Cup final, to be involved in the Champions League final and a World Cup final in the space of 6 months and have a big role. Like, that would be the story. You know, if it was to come off. I think the concern is, like, I've read quite a few pieces along Shane's lines talking about Inter Milan there and how you expose City. The fear is that they don't have terrific speed, but that's why he is going to be such a big player for them, you know, and he's going to be an influential player in the game. So I just hope we get a contest. Like, I just hope that, like, I hope Inter score early. I mean, that in some sort of parallel universe, if that could happen, we could have an absolutely terrific Champions League final. And if not, well, I mean, there we go. It's just a coronation, like Sheikh Mansoura's going, I see. So, I mean, this is where we are. It's like, you know, which sheikh is going to attend is like would be the perfect illustration of modern sport in the week that's in it, I suppose. You know, he's going for his first game since 2010. It's not as if City have been up to much since then, you know, but like, there you go.
No, they have done.
Yeah, it's it's a nice gig. Sure, I'll take in this one. But,
the problem is, Dan, if we're looking for the game to be as competitive for as long as possible, really what we're saying there is we're hoping that it's going to be 0-0 for as long as possible.
You're right.
We're not getting an exciting competitive 3-2.
Like. Yeah, that's fine.
No, I think that's it. Like, I mean, I think, but which would you take then? Like, do you want just a Man City masterclass, or would you be delighted if it was 0-0 at 60 minutes and it had been terrible?
I don't want a Man City.
Like terrible in a Gomez activity sense. Obviously, it would be interesting, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but like there's a purist in terms of what you want on the pitch, but there's a purist in terms of not really liking the Man City project.
Well, here's one for you. I do want a masterclass because it means that Guardiola will leave sooner, and then the whole thing will not be the same.
Will he though?
I think so, yeah. I think this is a big thing for him. He strikes me as a restless type. It seems like a project. If they get over the line, he'll stay for another couple of years. But then, he probably wants to manage Spain. He wants to manage Brazil.
Managing Spain despite his strong Catalan.
Well, there maybe, but this thing about him managing Brazil, he wants to manage Brazil. Fascinating. Like, there's some brilliant writing, by the way, around.
Absolutely.
Like Richard Fitzpatrick in the Irish Times about like a profile of Guardiola, which is unbelievable.
I thought that was a great read. Just to give it a plug, some great reading today, JD. But the stuff like going back to his Barca days, were you surprised at that?
The Villanova stuff. Tito Villanova, and now we haven't heard from Guardiola on this recently, but I mean, after Villanova died, who was his assistant at Barcelona and then subsequent manager, he said he'd be sad for life. They're the best mates, but it seems like from the article they had a bit of a more strained relationship.
A lot more strained.
When Villanova was sick with cancer.
He called to see him once, despite the fact he was living in the same city as his treatment. Villanova's wife expressly told him to not come to the wake, wasn't it?
Yes.
And he apparently, now again, he tipped off the press that he was going to be at the funeral, but they'd fallen out because of the ending of their access at Barcelona, and that I don't know if he. They were teammates going back a long time, and they were like obviously very, very good buds, and maybe he thought that you're going to work with me or you're going to work under me, but you can't like take that job. But there were shades of kind of Clough and Taylor, but a lot more kind of almost like a lot more acrimonious. And Guardiola's a complex character. Like he's not very likable. He's probably that. He probably has that madness in him that separates ordinary people from true greatness, which he clearly is as a coach. But like. I don't like how prickly he's been in relation to legitimate questions about the whole financial backing of Man City from what is effectively a state, and also the fact that as Dan says, this is a week where this is one of the most disgusting weeks in the history of sport, really, when you think where the world is going at the moment because of oil and oil wealth, and you see what happened in golf, and then like you also see that Newcastle are going to have what is effectively Saudi Arabian state sponsorship, really, on their jersey for 25 million a year, and they're likely going to get away with that. And then you have Man City likely winning the Champions League tonight because of money from an oil-rich dictatorship, really, which the UAE is. So I don't want them to win. Definitely not. I think they're possibly the best football team I've ever seen, but that doesn't make me want them to win.
Paul Hurst, unbelievable behind the scenes stuff in the UK Times about Guardiola. I'll just quote here. During one team talk in January, João Cancelo is said to have put his earphones in and slumped to the floor as Guardiola addressed the squad. It was viewed by staff as a clear act of insubordination against the manager. Guardiola told the director of football to see Bagiristan that Cancelo had to go, and a few days later, after Barcelona Real had made failed bids, the Portuguese was loaned to Bayern Munich, also saying that Guardiola doesn't eat until after the game, so it'll be a long night for him this evening. Salmon is the best salmon is flown in from Norway for Erling Haaland because he likes it. This is, I think, City's 61st game this season.
The stat as well, JD, that this is staggering, Shane, right? Man City have been behind on the scoreboard for a combined 46 minutes in their last 27 matches going back to February. So in the last 27 matches they've been behind for one half in all. And Kevin Kilban's article in the Times as well, where he basically says De Bruyne sort of threw in the towel at the World Cup with a view to Man City, where he basically, like, after the first game, he's like, we're too old, and he was poor in the tournament. So there's lots of interesting stuff around it, but I don't know. I mean, I was just thinking of Shane Keegan, though. If like Wilson Moreira, one of the lads, had the headphones in, you're out, like in St. Coleman's Park, get out of my club.
I'm not so sure I have the embarrassment of riches to fall back now. Myself and Wilson might have to have an off the record conversation.
But like it's you wonder sometimes, do the players enjoy it that much? Because how long did it take Grealish to get used to it?
Another thing, they all apparently they all live together in the same apartment block. I was reading that as well. So Grealish and Haaland and Diaz and Alvarez all live in the same apartment block.
It's like an army.
Yeah, which is interesting.
I have 8 of my players living in the same apartment block in bloody Portugal for the week this week, so I'm not sure if that's comparable either.
Shout out to all of them watching today.
Derek Foley in the Star, like profiling Alan Riley, who used to play for City in the late 90s when they were in the third tier of English football in the main road days. Obviously, it just shows how far City have come in the last 25 years, given the fall they had, and they had to beat Gillingham, didn't they? And he ended up with Bohemians then, Alan Riley.
I've said this before and I've been kind of scoffed at, but I would like to know what the old fans think of it all. Like, will they get massive enjoyment out of being backed by a Petro State and win the Champions League, or will they pine for the days when it was a working class game and they played in Main Road and they were decent mid-table Premier League team? Maybe I'm wrong, but like, I don't know. It's bought and it's.
But isn't
Johnny?
That's football.
Johnny, look at the Newcastle fan. I know that actually there is a Newcastle fan group, to be fair, that has been set up that does have an opposition to the ownership of the club, and I think they get pilloried, but they do exist. I'm not sure if there's a City version of that, but you see that the Newcastle shirt sponsorship stuff, which is just hilarious. Like, this company didn't even have a website a couple of weeks ago, and now they're like doing a 25 million jersey deal. Or the website was under construction. Like, they did very well to get this far into.
But they're promoting Saudi business, Dan. They get it back, like, you know.
Yeah, but like you see some of the comments from people underneath that goes, "Oh no, this makes perfect sense." Says, Newcastle Jim, age 60 in Durham, saying this makes perfect sense for synergy. It's like, no, I mean, this is. I mean, of course, Man City fans are enjoying it. You're like sort of trying to project your own wishes onto how they might feel about it.
And in many ways, I can't help but smile at the fact that that Johnny isn't happy with oil money, but he's perfectly happy with money made from property.
With the Cobh Brothers. Well, I don't think it's really comparable, but I guess
running away with the league because of financial.
Well, I would argue, and I don't know what the Cobh Brothers are putting into Go United, but Go United's wage bill is not off the charts by any means. It's decent in the first division, but they haven't lashed
by scale. I'd say it's not dissimilar, Johnny.
Is your issue with the fact that because obviously there's money behind every big entity, so like the Kroenkes is Walmart. It's the Glazers is finance, and the way the Manchester United has been leveraged has been.
It's clearly not fair. It's the money that's been put into Man City, just like in Newcastle. It's not fair. They've essentially contravened the rules, and we know they have. How many pages were in the documents that they came up with? It's like
which they're contesting,
which they obviously are contesting, and I'm sure they're not going to sue the show or whatever. But it's not fair, JD, and we know that. And it's also how the Arab states themselves have come to this situation where they're basically sports washing the world, because you've somebody like Mohammed bin Salman, who's like a bored kind of dictator now, who wants to do things like take over Newcastle United and take over golf, even though he's no interest in either.
Well, no, I think what he's interested in is modernising Saudi Arabia, and also the fact that oil now is not going to be as dominant a fossil fuel in the next 50 to 100 years. So they're having
humans.
They're having to diversify their interests, and being part of sport in the world is part of that, and they're investing 600 billion through their PIF into sport. So bringing Ronaldo, bringing Benzema to Saudi, setting up Saudi clubs, 4 of them, possibly bidding successfully for the World Cup, being now underwriting the whole sport of golf. So there is a geopolitical strategic effort at what Saudi Arabia are doing right now, just as much as Qatar had a strategic interest to bid successfully for the World Cup, just as much as the UAE have had a strategic interest in Manchester City. I even think with golf, there's a degree of trolling about the United States government with the golf thing this week, because there's a very strained relationship between the United States government and the Saudi government, with Joe Biden and MBS haven't met since last summer.
Hopefully Trump gets in and they'll be friends again.
Well, but I suppose there is a geopolitical element now to sport that can't be ignored, and that is now swirling around the atmosphere of a club that's going to win the Champions League tonight, that has been assembled brilliantly by Pep Guardiola, 100%. Managed brilliantly, great players. A lot of us just at times just want the escapism of that, and we don't care about it really. We just want to see great football, but unfortunately you can't ignore it because it's so now dominant in the prevailing narrative.
Totally.
It is the game. It is the game now, John. You just feel there is the escapism is the football, you're right. And you can analyse it, but I mean there's no And maybe there never was to an extent. I mean, then again, I think of Nottingham Forest winning European Cups, and maybe you just get nostalgic for a different time that will never come back, But there's no romance in it at all. Like Pep's mission for the Champions League is a story, right? There is, he wants to win it with another club, and it's had like those sort of cock-ups in recent years and his Bayern experience, and that's absolutely fine. But it's not triumphant against the odds, really, is it? It's like he's finally got to do it by going to a club that has more money than anybody else, with some questionable deals underpinning it, and they're under investigation by the league in which they play. It's sort of a hard one to sell as as the last line in a sort of a Netflix series or something, with a sort of cut to a montage of happy music at the end of it. Like it's not that. But I mean, look, I went to Qatar. It's there with you. I mean, is it possible? We've had this discussion a million times. You can enjoy it, but there comes a point where a lot of people are just beaten down to the point where they just don't care who wins. And that's the thing. Like, if Newcastle suddenly emerge as the challenger to Man City, and they both probably have the financial power to pull away, although Newcastle, some talk their transfer budget may not be as big this summer. Have they spent all their money on golf? Who knows? I doubt it. But a Man City Newcastle title race, where do you get off with that one? Do
we feel romantic about Real Madrid?
Yeah.
Well, no, but John, that's the point. Like, where is I take that point, and like, there's an argument that, like, some of the traditional big clubs, like, they've enjoyed their monopoly that comes from their power. And that's obviously how you try and sell it, and that's why fans of Man City and Newcastle will say, well, hang on, look, just because you're a fan of Liverpool, Manchester United, or some of the traditional bigger clubs, you have a divine right for this. I mean, the Super League debate sort of touched on that a little bit in some ways, it went there, and like Man City sort of came in, and then they pulled up the drawbridge to an extent, and then Newcastle, and then all of a sudden it's gone too far. But I take that point, but there's probably another level here, like you are talking about states with some very questionable recent activity,
and as well as that,
and conditions in the country. So you just can't divorce yourself from that. As much as it's probably boring to talk about it sometimes, and everyone's like, "I'll stop going on about it," but it is probably, there's a degree of obligation there to always remind people of that, because that's where it comes from.
That part of the world, Old Arabia, like kind of a tribal people, like, amazing part of the world if you were ever there. Then they discovered oil, so they had to make states to protect their assets, and they're basically dodgy states. Like Saudi Arabia is a despicable state in many respects. We all know this. And just as the climate crisis is getting to the point where we are really, really in a bad place, God knows how bad this is going to get because of fossil fuels, Saudi Arabia and the Middle East is effectively taking over sport. And it's hard not to get around the irony and the horror of this, like when the world is burning and we're running out of everything, and Saudi Arabia is like flexing its muscles to take over golf, take over Newcastle United, and Man City are going to win Champions League because of oil money, basically. So I don't get any enjoyment out of it whatsoever, and my mind won't be far off the situation we're in, whatever about Mohammed bin Salman.
I like the way you glanced at me there, JD. Listen, I'm way out of my depth here, and the excuse I'll fall back on every time is, well, I'm not a journalist. It's a nice handy excuse for me to be able to fall back on. See, I'm probably too black and white, like, in that for me, I'm either all in on something or I'm not in at all. And like, I'm either going to enjoy the football and watch the football and look at the tactical side of things and look at the game as a game of football, or stop watching football because I don't like where the money is after coming from. Like, I'm not going to go that side, so I'm going to stay the side I'm on. So it genuinely, I've held my hand up before and said, don't know what it says about my shallowness. It won't come into my thinking when I sit down this evening. That's the short of it, to be honest with you. I am able to just push it to the back of my mind. I know you shouldn't, but I will just push it to the back of my mind because it won't be the slightest. I will be watching football for the football, by watching two extremely different styles of football, which is what gets me excited when I'm watching a game of football rather than watching same. And everything the lads are saying makes complete and utter sense, but would it have entered my mind without the two boys talking about it? Nah.
It is the beauty of the team that finishes last in the NFL. It gets the first pick in the draft, and as much as America's basket case, capitalism and so on, sport is actually kind of a lot fairer, because as you say, JD, I want Pep to leave as well. I want it to become and in fairness to Pep, he is the best manager, but it's not really enjoyable to see Man City dominate the way they are, as much as they're brilliant to watch.
Well, I think maybe it goes against the grain of the fact that everybody views it as the people's game. So if you feel that this can be bought, and to a level it can be, say Abramovich, for example, at the time when the money was pumped into Chelsea, you felt that they were ahead of everybody else in the first couple of years under Mourinho, and then then you have a City, then you have a Newcastle, and the Wild West nature of it means that, and the lax regulation really in terms of the amount of money that's being spent and how to the precise nature that it has been spent, it feels like that the soul has been ripped out of the thing. And
it's the problem I have is, and Shane mentions the Comer brothers, right? But the Comer brothers are from Glenamaddy, who came from nothing, right? So whatever the Comer brothers, they've become billionaires, they've made a lot of money, but they're from Galway and they've invested that money in Galway United. So that's kind of like old school chairman, really. Like, they put money into their. But these people have no association whatsoever.
To be fair, they put a lot of money into Manchester.
The Comers.
No.
The Comers were actually linked with Aston Villa.
The people, to be fair to them, the people involved in the UAE in Manchester City have put a lot of money into the area around Manchester.
But they've no connection whatsoever with the place.
So they're trying to get the connection.
Yeah, but it's not. It's like the synergy Dan talks about with the Saudis in Newcastle. They've no strategic interest in this place whatsoever, or its people. It's just doing it for their own ends, and that's why I don't derive any enjoyment out of it. Go ahead, celebrate your win tonight, Sheik, whoever you are. But you've no connection to this club.
No, they're not doing it to get a connection. Unless I see them doing their shopping in the local store with everyone else, it's not that. It is it's true that City in some respects, they have won praise at times for how they treat their staff, and at various times in recent times their academy has become very good, and there's great working conditions there for people there, and they've done a lot for the community in Manchester. The problem is just the country where they're based, there's terrible conditions for people under that regime. That's the issue.
So you don't have an issue with one team being far superior to the other based on them having far more financial wealth. It's more so just where the financial wealth came from.
And having financial fair play, in fairness, that it's done at least in some sort of guise of rules, that if you're sponsored by a bookmaker, the bookmaker at least exists, as opposed to just mid up because you can get around it that way. So as Dan says, you're not going to have fair play. You're not going to have Shamrock Rovers will probably always be a bigger club than Galway United. Galway United will be a bigger club than Cobh Ramblers. But it's just this is. Look at the money that they've thrown at this for no real reason other than that they're they want to get involved in sort of stuff around the world and flex their muscles. They've no interest whatever in Manchester themselves. How could the Saudi takeover of golf or the Saudi Newcastle thing be good for sport? It just isn't, because it's just a dictator flexing his muscles effectively.
53106.
How about the game? How'll it go?
yeah.
See, there's my issue as well. The fact that we've, it's a conversation that has to be had. But
because Guardiola, in terms of Guardiola's evolution of the game itself, it doesn't matter if Guardiola had these players and they were on a third of their salary. It wouldn't make any difference to his amazing ability as a manager.
That's De
Zerbi. There you go.
That's De Zerbi.
Now, talk to us about the game.
Yeah, look, as I say, it's not that hard to sum up tactically. Kind of what I said earlier is absolutely how the game will go.
What does he do with Haaland? So Inzaghi has implied he has a plan.
Yeah, well, again,
what do you do?
To be honest with you, Haaland is the kind of centre forward that these Inter Milan centre backs will want to play against, in that he is the big bustling bruiser type rather than the ones that's going to kind of disappear off up the field and reappear in the box when the cross comes in. So it does, but if it was anybody but Haaland, Pep would be tempted to go without an out-and-out centre forward against Inter Milan, because I do think that the false nine thing is the kind of thing that could cause Inter Milan problems. But obviously it's Haaland, so of course he's going to start. And while Inter will say as a team this probably suits us better to have a number 9 that we can touch his jersey and feel him close to us, the problem is that centre forward is Haaland. And I mean, if anybody wants to have a bet against Haaland scoring tonight, fair play to them.
He didn't score against but bizarrely he somehow didn't score against Real, like, despite the fact he played extremely well. So maybe you're right, like, and the way to defend against Haaland is basically like rough him up a bit and defend in numbers with giving him no space, like, because he's not going to, as you say, he's not going to like pick up the ball off the, you know, in the centre circle. That's not his game.
Yeah, well, again, like, so what is the answer? How do you defend against Haaland? Like,
kick him.
Kick him. I think he's reasonably happy to be kicked. I don't think he'll have any major problem with that either. Like, these will drop. The fear for Inter obviously is.
What do they do with the ball?
Well, they're not going to have it, Johnny.
Yeah, so see, even with their 35, they won't even
have less than 35.
30% possession.
About 25.
What can they do with the ball?
They're honestly, they're just going to have to look to counter-attack as quick. I know that sounds fairly blunt, so it is, but like, they need to have an out ball, right? So the two boys, obviously, that'll kind of stay up. Now, they won't stay up. They'll stay in and around Rodri's zone, let's say, and then they'll try and get it out as far as them. They need runners off that. To be fair, Barella is the perfect player in terms of having a runner off it. The man has some energy, and believe it or not, their main attacking outlet in terms of creation is DeMarco, who's the left wing back. I mean, he is the one coming up with all the assists. The problem DeMarco is going to have is he tends to burn people for pace, and best of luck to him trying to burn Kyle Walker for pace. So Kyle Walker is exactly the prototype really that you want there, in that Kyle Walker can go all the way up the field into the final third, and if they break and DeMarco goes, well, Walker will hunt him down and catch up with him again. So he will. So it's look, again,
if you were Pep tonight, then what would you do? Like, would you change anything about the way they'll approach the game?
No, and they won't. Like, to be fair to Pep, like, again, I understand he has all the tools at his requirement, right? But he is the master at assessing where the issue is and finding, and like, people say you can't reinvent the wheel. Like, Pep has reinvented the wheel 2 or 3 times now, so he has. Like, he has, Jetty. He has done things that we've genuinely have never seen before. And that's why I find him just fascinating and remarkable. I mean,
he's no crack though, like.
Oh, he's no crack. He's no crack, and I'd say he would wear you out being around him for any sort of length of time at all, I'd imagine.
That's just public face. You don't know. You don't know what he's like. You don't know what he's like with a glass of vino or a San Miguel in his hands. You know?
I just can't see. First of all, I can't see him with a San Miguel, and I can't see him being cracked with a San Miguel either.
but he decided last year, basically on the back of the Champions League semi-final, he decided that he needed 3 players at home the majority of the time when his team were attacking, but he also wanted to always have a box 4 in terms of how they built out. And the only way to make that happen, even though it seems like the easiest solution in the world now, but nobody was coming up with it at the time, is I'm going to go back to the old style Franz Beckenbauer thing of you're a centre back when we don't have it, and you're going to come out and you're going to play centre mid when we do, and that allows me to have the flat back 4, say, and Rodri in front when we don't have it, and yet we still have a box 4. So John Stone's going playing 2 positions for me. You know, this is the crack, and this is the crack. You know, again, I'm not saying anything that's new here, but the idea anymore, JD, of being able to write down a team's formation is just preposterous. It's absolutely preposterous, because which are you writing down for Man City? Are you writing down their formation when they don't have it, or are you writing down their formation when they do have it? Because they're 2 completely and utterly different formations. You know, so the old style of 4-2-3-1, like, best of luck trying to write down what City's formation is.
I think Guardiola's calmer than he was a couple of years ago. I don't think he's going to make any stupid decisions like he did with no defensive midfielders against Chelsea and Porto. That was just absolutely crazy.
It'd be hilarious if they didn't win, though. He wouldn't be calm then, because, like,
well, it would be
literally on a plate.
It would be glass jaw stuff. I think as well, all the players are fit. And I think that the bench is huge, and I think that Phil Foden has not been getting his place in the team for Manchester City. Like, it just shows.
But how does he get in the team then?
Well, it's like if he gets in the Grealish position, doesn't he?
Not a hope. Yeah, not a hope the way Grealish is playing.
So there you go. So what I'm trying to say is that if it's not Grealish, it's Bernardo Silva. If it's not Bernardo Silva, and we've seen it very much recently, it's Ilkay Gundogan. So it's always somebody else. 53106. All right, John, I don't know why you lads always give the Qataris and Saudis such a hard time. They're investing in the sport and the game has never been played at such a high level as a result. From Brezzo.
Brezzo could be like an AI generated from Abu Dhabi.
He's got his
looking at the recent game.
Don't be cynical. The man's entitled his opinion.
I swear. I'm taking the piss, but I swear, like when Saudi Arabia was running its signature horse race, which I think is a purse of $20 million, I posted up on Twitter. I was on Twitter at the time. I was like, "That's great. Like, enjoy your horse race, $20 million. But it's great that, like, in your proxy war over the border, you've like kids starving in Yemen." I had a barrage of people replying in favour of the Saudi regime, just as this week we've had the climate conference in the UAE, and you have all this AI generated support for the regime. So I can't even remember why I'm saying this, but they are mad. Okay. It's mad what goes on.
Okay.
Sound like Pep.
Enough. Shelbourne 4, Wexford Hughes 0 in the Women's Premier Division. Bohemians 1, Cork City 0 at Dalymount Park. We also have in the minor football quarterfinals, Kerry 7 points, Kildare 1-3, and Derry 2 points, Galway 0. And in Iga Swiatek 6 games to 2, she won the first set against Karolina Muchova in the French Open Women's Final. It's 4 games all in the second set. Dan McDonnell's in Turkey. We'll be back with him after the break. Johnny Ward and Shane Keegan on Football Saturday.
Off the ball on News Talk.
Let me explain with Sean Defoe.
With the Leaving Cert kicking off this week, we've been looking for your exam disaster stories, from forgetting your calculator for the maths exam and having your mother drop in the TV remote, to people getting sick right onto their exam papers, to speaking French in your Irish oral. You've all been getting in touch, and we've compiled them on this week's Let Me Explain podcast, which is available now on the News Talk app, powered by Go Loud, or wherever you get your podcasts.
With Toyota's incredible hybrid electric range, you don't have to change the way you drive to make a difference. Drive in electric mode 50% of the time on average with no plugging in. Discover the range at your dealer today, including the Toyota CHR and Yaris Hybrid, and see where Ireland's best-selling car brand will take you. Available now for July delivery. For flexible payment options, see toyota.ie. Toyota, built for a better world. Terms and conditions apply. Best-selling claim based on latest published monthly figures.
Not sure where to start with your smart meter? Sign up to a Home Electric Plus smart meter price plan from Electric Ireland to see how much energy your appliances are actually using. Track your usage monthly, daily, or even hourly, and get tips and advice on how to use less. It's a smart start to controlling your energy usage. To sign up, search Electric Ireland Home Electric Plus. Smart meter and online account required. Features available after 4 months. T's and C's apply. See electricireland.ie.
She cuts in from the wing. Oh, that's superb. She's through on goal! Yes! She scored a world-class win!
Sarah?
Huh? Oh.
Cadbury Buttons or Dairy Milk?
Oh, gosh, sorry. Don't dream about a world-class win. Enter to win one. Meet a world-class footballer and win an epic holiday worth 8k. Only with Cadbury. T's and C's apply. Visit worldclass.cadburyfc.com.
At University of Galway, our prestigious history spans almost 2 centuries. Our global network connects us to partners around the world. Our researchers are shaping the future. Our students are shaping their own. Since 1845, we've been committed to driving cutting-edge research and teaching that takes you further. Join over 19,000 students and make your mark at Ireland's #1 university for sustainable development. Make your choice, make your mark. Visit universityofgalway.ie/CAO.
Calling all out-of-contract Virgin Media customers. Switch to Air Broadband this summer and save up to €420. Experience amazing 500 meg speeds for just €34.99 a month. Sign up today and get €50 off your bill. For more, call 1-800-500-300, go in store or visit air.ie. Air, Ireland's #1 broadband provider. Subject to availability, 12-month contract. Ireland's #1 broadband provider based on Comreg market share. For full T's and C's, see air.ie/save.
Escape to the country at Mount Wolseley Hotel, Spa and Golf Resort. Enjoy alfresco dining in blissful gardens, a woodland walking trail, an 18-hole championship golf course, a forest playground complete with zip wire, extensive leisure facilities and award-winning spa. 4-star luxury in a safe, serene and beautiful country resort. Choose a deluxe room or book a 4-star resort house. Select from a wide range of exclusive summer packages. MountWolseley.ie for your great country escape.
Bake it, braise it, roast it, grill it, steam it, stir it, whisk it. And with Neff, get closer to it. Everything we do is carefully designed to help creative cooks cook. Like our unique Neff slide and hide oven. The oven with the disappearing door that slides effortlessly under the cavity. So get closer to your cooking with Neff. Search Neff ovens today.
It's all about Dad this Father's Day at Dunnes Stores. So treat him to something extra special with a personalised e-gift card. Choose a photo of Dad or someone he loves, whether it's you, another family member, or even the family pet. Upload your photo and we'll add it to his e-gift card. Buy and send a personalised e-gift card at any time, or you can even schedule it to land in his inbox on Father's Day. Dunnes Stores. Always better value. Terms, conditions, exclusions and minimum spend apply.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
This is Football Saturday and Off the Ball. John Duggan until 5 with Shane Keegan, the Cobh Ramblers Boston studio, with Johnny Ward, the broadcaster and journalist, and also on the line from Turkey, Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent, the football correspondent. You can text us 53106, and you can also watch us on the digital and social channels for Off the Ball, on YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. Comments on YouTube. We have John Summers thought McAllister move to Liverpool was a very good signing in my opinion. Shawnee was watching the big match on IGV this morning showing Arsenal, Birmingham, Brady, Stapleton playing. Couldn't believe the low standard League of Ireland standard. Trevor France is the best player. We also have another text in here. Pep didn't reinvent the wheel. Mateus equals Stones. Football in the 50s and 60s were played with inverted full-backs. False nine around the 70s and the 80s. Great manager but nowhere near the best, says Alan. Lads, bitterness towards City from News Talk is getting ridiculous at this stage. If it's not Monday to Friday in the morning, it's now Saturday afternoons. Yes, we got lucky with the ownership, but no one gave a fiddler as we were playing and getting stuffed by the likes of Oldham and Main Road, says Ollie in Navan. Another one, hi John, you'd make a great James Bond in that suit. Will you ask the lads who is their favourite Bond, says John Dillon in Bray.
I've never watched James Bond. No,
asking the wrong man here. No, it's not.
Dan, are you a James Bond man?
No. This like we're just so focused on football, JD. We have no life outside it.
I used to live near the Oliver Bond, but yeah, you about it.
I'm amazed, because always on a Sunday you'd have a match or something, and then afterwards they always show the James Bond matinee and RT. There's like a loop of about 10 films that goes round in a big loop. So I have to say.
Yeah, who's your favourite Bond?
Roger Moore, because he has that suave English kind of thing going on, which is obviously something I wanted to be, but I never happened.
Still time.
We had another one there. Hi John, I'm getting married on Friday. Any chance I could borrow your jacket for the day, says Mark and Cork up the Rebels.
Congratulations.
We have another one. Congratulations, Mark. Hi lads, interesting to see the investment in Shelbourne from the Turkish Simon Cowell this week. Do you reckon this could be the start of a few more investments? Will the real Simon Cowell buy Bray Wanderers, says G. Nolan. Dan, does Shelbourne take over? Is this a game changer?
I'm not sure about game changer. I mean, the sort of person who's bought them is really big news in Turkey. Like I sort of was reading up on it here, and just typed in, as you do, sort of into Google, and got hundreds of Turkish news sites covering this, because he is, as you say, the Turkish Simon Cowell, like a big sort of media personality and figure, announcing this takeover of Shelbourne to 6.1 million Twitter followers or something like that. Now, I'm not sure if many of them are AI generated or not, Johnny, but I'd say a good portion of them are real. So I don't know. I think there's obviously a degree of skepticism, with all of these things. In Irish football, there's always a fear that, what are they going to find here? Will they get bored? What happens if they find out it's pretty hard still to make money? The multi-club model is a new one, because they're sort of paired up with Hull, and this is the thinking of the multi-club model for some people, is that if you can derive value for the club at the top of the ladder, then maybe it doesn't matter as much if the other cogs in the wheel aren't profitable. And what I mean is that if Shels are capable of preparing players for Hull that have a big value for them, well then Shels have performed their function, even if Shels is a standalone, maybe are thriving. So we shall see. There's talk of, I think, 2 million being invested initially. I see Damien Duff was speaking after the game last night, said he's already been able to get a contract done with a player that they're announcing on Monday. So I think, we'll probably talk about it after 4. The big talking point in Irish football this week has been infrastructure. It's been facilities. I think what people want from an investor coming in now is a commitment to do that. Shels are trying to. Anyone goes to Talca Park can see that. They've managed to sort of sellotape parts of it back together and to play in the Premier Division, but it's not in a great shape. Damien Duff himself has spoken about training ground facilities and how they are. So if someone's willing to come in and in the opening year show a desire to put money in to accelerate those projects, then I think you'll get people on board very easily. The whole fans seem to like him. I think he flew 300 of them over to Antalya, where I am at the moment, actually, for some kind of holiday last year. So I'm sure the Shels fans might fancy a bit of that. But look, I think Irish football's in a place where it's been scarred by experiences before, and as a result there's a degree of scepticism that's there, but sometimes I think is that in danger of making you a little bit too sceptical and too much of a closed mind to anyone coming in, and the balance has to be somewhere between the two, and they have to prove themselves by maybe making some capital commitments that shows that their time will leave a legacy, and hopefully that's what happens. The
League of Ireland grounds in general are woefully inadequate. Even Tala is our sort of flagship, and Tala is by any metric globally is a bang average stadium. It's just relatively new. It doesn't have, it looks nice, but it's an average stadium that in the English 4 divisions would be just an average nothing stadium really. So Tala is obviously, we're proud of Tala, but you look at the rest. The problem is, JD, and I think Drogheda had this issue as well. Somebody comes in and he's told, okay, well, this is what it's going to cost to redevelop the ground because of the spiralling costs of doing anything in this country. What was your figure for Dalymount, Dan, in the Indo today?
I think it's got to around 40 million at the last estimate.
This is 8,000 seaters.
Yeah. Now, this point has been raised this week. The Dalymount, they are flipping the pitch, and it's quite a complicated one in a residential area. But the point stands. It is expensive to get things done here. I didn't answer the first part of your question as well, JD. Will more of this happen? I think it probably will. The Fleetwood Waterford thing, there's complexities to that, given what's happened to the owner subsequently, but there are other clubs looking at Ireland to come in and add clubs to a portfolio, and I'd imagine it'll happen in other places probably before the year is out. Yes.
So put in simplest terms, Dan, what would you expect to happen here? Are Shels going to end up benefiting because they will get some good players who aren't quite good enough for Hull's first team but will be very, very good League of Ireland players, or do Hull get Jack Moylan? What way do players move here, or is it a bit of both? That's a reasonably crude way of putting it, but I'm just wondering what way you expect it to play out.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not entirely sure. I do think sometimes there's a very simplistic read of these things for people, and people had it with the Hull Dundalk one. Liam Rowe Senior said something in the press conference. I'm not sure how prepared he even was for it at the time. And all of a sudden it's well, they're going to impose a style of play and that's it. And I just don't think that's going to happen. No. I really think people are just lost the plot on
Duffer
on one quote there. But it's just people are saying that Duffer's going to, that's not going to happen because if they're any good at business, they won't allow that to happen. I think what you've seen with Waterford, with no doubt, Waterford signed was it Dean McMenemy from Shamrock Rovers. What you're probably seeing is that Shels can pitch in to get players from around Ireland and can say to them, well, we do have this link with Hull. But I think Hull may send players here on loan as well too, but I don't think they can just impose them either. I think these multi-club models, like you see Man City are part of a super big one. I think if they're going to work, there has to be a degree of common sense application. So I don't know how this will work. If they have a common sense view, it can be effective. I know we're going to a break. Sorry, JD.
Dan McDonnell in Turkey, the Irish Independent, Johnny Ward and Shane Keegan on studio on Football Saturday. We're back after the news between 4 and 5. Plenty to talk about. Ireland against Greece next Friday, and to Spurs, and anything else that tickles your fancy. You can text us 53106. We're back after this.
Get real-time updates at Newstalk FM on Twitter and stay informed. Newstalk. Conversation that counts.
We spend much of our lives waiting. Waiting for someone to talk to.
Thank you for holding.
Waiting in line.
Next.
And waiting for the sun to shine. But if you're holding on for the right EV, your wait is over. Because the Kia EV6 is now waiting for you at your local Kia dealer. A triumph of design, space and range. The award-winning EV6 is the car that changes everything. So what are you waiting for? Visit kia.com to book your test drive. Kia. Movement that inspires.
InsureMyVan.ie. Hi, I'm Ken Doherty. For all van drivers and business owners, InsureMyVan.ie is Ireland's low-cost van and commercial insurance specialist. For high-quality van and all commercial insurances, call InsureMyVan.ie.
City Financial Marketing Group Limited, trading as InsureMyVan.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
A Daft Advantage ad is the best way for you to sell your home in Ireland. By putting your ad at the top of search results with bigger photos, you guarantee unbeatable visibility, attract more buyers and get the best price for your home. Ask your estate agent for a Daft Advantage ad today.
The Harvey Norman Big Sale is now on. Shop our incredible range of premium coffee machines, like the new Sage Creatista Virtuo Nespresso coffee machine, featuring a polished stainless steel construction that will seamlessly integrate into your kitchen. With its simple one-touch espresso extraction and an integrated steam wand, you can froth your milk and personalize your favorite coffee creations. Shop the new Sage Virtuo Creatista Nespresso coffee machine from only $7.99 at your local Harvey Norman store today. The Harvey Norman Big Sale is now on. Don't miss out.
Go! Welcome to Tesco Mobile.
Our prepaid plans give you more freedom. Top up by €15 a month and get more data than you need. But that's not all. You'll also get 1,000 any network minutes, 500 any network texts and unlimited calls and texts to Tesco Mobile customers. Now that's a sweet deal. This is Supermarket Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps. T's and C's apply. A minimum top up of €15 required every 28 days. See tescomobile.ie for further details.
Do you want to take the next step in your career? At Atlantic Technological University, we can help you. Choose from over 350 online, flexible and postgraduate courses. Build accredited qualifications in science, engineering, business, nursing, education, computing and much more. From short courses to masters, work hard and thrive with a flexible learning experience designed to suit you. Apply now at atu.ie/flexible. ATU. Develop the skills you need to stand out.
And 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3.
123ink.ie, miss.
Sorry?
123ink.ie. You know, for all your ink at home or work. They're really good, miss.
Focus, Tara. And 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 123ink.ie. Service without the jigs and the reels.
Make it a summer to really remember with Go Breaks. From family getaways to romantic hideaways. Discover our best hotel deals now at gobreaks.ie.
Go Breaks.
In as little as 3 minutes, you could die from smoke inhalation. A working smoke alarm gives you a chance to get out. It might be the sound that saves your life. Test your smoke alarms regularly, remove obvious dangers, and have an escape route planned. Visit firesafetyweek.ie for more fire safety tips. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
Who said electrification can't spark excitement? From introducing Ireland's first EV to redefining the family car, Nissan has always led from the front. And now we're breaking new ground once more with e-Power, Nissan's unique hybrid driving system. Fueled by petrol, driven by electric, no need to recharge, giving you the pleasure of electric driving without the need to plug in. New Nissan Qashqai and X-Trail with e-Power. Drive it to believe it at your nearest Nissan dealer. Nissan. Innovation that excites.
Taking Stock.
On this week's episode of Taking Stock, in the US, Mike Pence came rolling into the presidential race on a Harley Davidson. We'll examine his chances in the US presidential race. Over in England, Prince Harry took on the tabloids as old wounds were resurrected to settle new scores. Jenny Bond joins us to talk about an extraordinary week in Britain for its media and the royal family.
Taking Stock
with Mandy Johnston, thanks to Skillnet Ireland.
Sunday morning at 9
on News Talk. Conversation that counts. On 106 to 108 FM, on the News Talk app, powered by Go Loud and smart speaker. This is News Talk.
It's 4 o'clock. I'm Lindsay Dolan. Good afternoon. Demonstrators at a housing rally in Cork City say the threat of becoming homeless is something they never thought they'd have to consider. Unions, opposition parties, homelessness campaigners and community groups say affordable rent and housing is becoming increasingly hard to find and is leading to mental health difficulties and increased youth emigration. These people outlined their concerns.
I think most young people are planning to leave. Sure, there's nothing here for them. There's no housing.
You know, it is absolutely terrifying that the majority of renters, they could get an eviction notice through their door. It's the security of tenure as well. That's the issue, is people don't know from 1 month or the other whether they're going to have a roof over their head. It's terrifying.
Teddy McCarthy has been remembered as a GAA legend and a doting grandfather at his funeral mass today. The 57-year-old Cork star was laid to rest this afternoon after his sudden death on Tuesday. His son Cian said while known for his Gaelic games prowess, he embraced his new role as a grandparent.
He really mellowed out over those few years. I mean, we joke about it at home, but I suppose all his life he was so wound up because he sacrificed everything he had to play GA when my two lads were born. He really put time into them, teach them how to play, hurling, football, everything. He used to even be given out to me for giving out to them.
Efforts are continuing by the HSE to entice consultants to sign up to the new public-only contract. Just 61 existing consultants have switched over so far. All new recruited consultants will automatically go on to the new contract. Dr. Matthew Sadler, chairman of the IMO, said they still have concerns around the new contract.
And there was fear about the extended working week being implemented without guarantees on increasing staff in order to staff that, because our big fear is that if you try to, work the same number of staff that you have that works Monday to Friday over a 6 or maybe even 7 day week, that really all you're doing is diluting the staffing of the hospital midweek.
Finally, humanitarian efforts are continuing in Ukraine to deal with the aftermath of the destruction of the Nova Kakhovka Dam. The United Nations Aid Chief Martin Griffith has delivered this warning about water supplies.
The figures are already terrifying. We're talking about 700,000 people without proper drinking water. That's an extraordinary number.
It's 4:02.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. See the Rugby World Cup live in France with Ryanair's low-fare flights to Paris, Bordeaux and Marseille.
Cloudy today with hazy sunshine and scattered showers. Sunnier in the north with highs of 19 to 24 degrees. Now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
This is Off the Ball Saturday until 5. John Duggan with you. In studio with me, Johnny Ward, the broadcaster and journalist, and the Cobh Ramblers manager, Shane Keegan. And on the line from Turkey, Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent, head of Ireland versus Greece on Friday. There's a training camp going on there at the moment. And we know that it's Man City Inter in the Champions League final at 8 o'clock this evening, Irish time. Women's Premier Division, Shelbourne thumped Wexford Youths 5-0. Jessie Stapleton, Hannah Healy, Christy Gray, Gemma Quinn and Kerry Lentman on the mark. Bohemians 2, Cork City 0 at half-time. Niamh Pryor and Ciara Maher for Bose. DLR Waves and Treaty United have just kicked off. Shamrock Rovers play Peamount at 4:45. In the All-Ireland Minor Football quarter-finals, Dublin beat Cork 118 to 212. At the moment in Nolan Park, Kerry 111, Kildare 1-6. It's Derry 1-5, Galway 2 points in Carrick and Shannon. And Iga Swiatek is a set-up against Karolina Muchova in the French Open Women's Singles Final. But Muchova leads 6-5 in that second set and has got a set point right now. So Dan, it's, as you said earlier on, it's crept up on us. It's only next Friday we play Greece in that massive qualifier. They're in Turkey at the moment. Do we have a sense of what the team might be next Friday?
I suppose it should be straightforward enough in certain areas. There's probably maybe one big position, maybe two positions where there's probably a debate to be had. Actually, maybe there's a couple more actually, but I think probably you look at the last game against France and things went pretty well in that game, apart from the result. But the performance was good. But probably a different type of game to this one in terms of the approach you would expect. And the fact that Chidozie Ogbeni is out with injury, who was so effective in that game, probably maybe solves one of the decisions that you might have faced. So I suppose I still think Gavin Bazunu will play in goals. I think there's been discussions about Queeveen Kelleher and so on. I still think Bazunu is Kenny's number one. I'd be surprised if he changed that, despite the fact he had a tough end to the season. I mean, it's not as if Kelleher is coming in off a better one. And then you have the back three available. So it's Dara O'Shea, it's Nathan Collins, it's John Egan. I think Matt Doherty would play at the right wing back, switch from the left to the right. I think one of your decisions is probably Callum O'Dowda versus James McLean on the left. The midfield three has the potential, I think, to be the same. With Josh Cullen will definitely play. And then you've got Jason Malumbi and Jason Knight. The only other one is, does Will Smallbone in some way come into your thinking? And then your front two, I guess if you're thinking about a front two, and you can always have a box midfield and it's something slightly different, but if you're thinking in front two terms, it would be Evan Ferguson and Michael Obafemi, I would think. Now I think Mikey Johnston has a chance of involvement, but if you're playing someone like Mikey Johnston, who's been playing regularly in Portugal at the end of the season, you're talking something more a little bit like a 3-4-3 type setup, probably. And then you're talking about Evan Ferguson probably leading the line through the middle as a central striker, whereas in Brighton he's played most of his football in a two, and the game against Latvia you saw Ferguson and Obafemi. So there's a few when you think about it, like there's a few options to consider, but it wouldn't be a shock if it just ended up being that team there with Obafemi and Ferguson, and maybe, I don't know, he was leaning towards O'Dowda as his first choice until he missed the France game. It's probably O'Dowda and McLean as one decision there.
We are in results territory now, aren't we?
Well, yes, firmly. I think some people would say you always have been in results territory, but I think there was a degree of understanding from the FAI's perspective about the early years under Kenny, but this campaign was always going to be everything. This campaign was always going to determine his future, and the draw was very unfortunate. The flip side of that is that Ireland were third seeds because results hadn't been good enough previously, and it left them open to a 1 in 10 chance to get in this group, or actually probably worse than 1 in 10 when you throw in getting Holland as well as top seeds. And here we are. So I think for Ireland to be competitive up till the end of the group, they either need to win this game and sort of get through September when they play in France and Holland unscathed, or it's a draw next week. They probably need to do something special in September when they play France and Holland. So winning this game is a great way to at least build up at a crack at things in the autumn. Failing to win just leaves you sort of in that sort of the group was already a stiff task, but you always felt if Ireland were going to have a chance in the group, they needed to beat Greece twice.
What about Greece? Where are they at?
Yeah, so Greece are managed by Gus Poyet, so I suppose there's a familiar name there. What do you think of when you think of Gus Poyet? I think of headers. FA Cup or Chelsea, probably, or
great header.
Or it runs into the box. Yeah.
They obviously had a time managing Brighton, which was sort of and Sunderland. So some colourful stories. But like Greece, Greece were fourth seeds, which obviously reflects that they've dropped to a low position from, I suppose, winning the Euros in 2004. And they are one of these teams who's used the Nations League pretty effectively, because they're already starting this campaign knowing they already have a playoff, because they won their group last year in the Nations League. So even if they came fifth in this group, if Gibraltar beat them, they're in the playoff next March. So it's probably even more of a free hit for them, this campaign. And under Poyet, the results have been good, but sort of not dissimilar to Ireland in a way. It looks like they've played better against the better teams. They have some good away performances against Spain, and they've been hard to beat in these games, and yet some of their games against fairly uninspiring teams, like, they've got modest performances. So to be honest, I wouldn't say there's a huge amount between these sides. I think it's a game that Ireland are capable of winning, but they can't win it by being 60%, 60, 65, 70%.
How do they approach the game, Dan?
Well, I still think, okay, the heat has been a big discussion point. It is going to be a 9:45 p.m. Local time kickoff, so it's obviously going to be warm and it's going to be demanding, but it's not.
It's like 27 degrees tops today. It's not too bad, like.
It's like Armenia last year. The big thing about Armenia last year, that game was at 5 o'clock local time, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock Irish time. It was a TV thing, and that was bad luck. Definitely, no, Ireland were dreadful, but like, it was really warm. I think in this game, we'll talk about the heat and the build-up, but I don't think it is as overhanging as it would be if it was an afternoon or a late evening kickoff. It's not quite that. So how do Ireland approach it? I think they probably still have to, like, Ireland's strength probably still is in, for all the Kenny era discussion about playing better football and being more easy on the eye, Ireland aren't a team with goals in them, with loads of goals in them. So they just have to have that sort of solid structure. I think this is the thing. I think later in the year when Ireland play Greece in Dublin, seeing where they are, there's obviously a view that the back three system can be sometimes overly defensive. And you might be thinking, God, is this the type of game where against a team like Greece where you'd like to be playing with a back four and wingers, which is probably still in some ways Stephen Kenny's natural instinct, you would feel. But I think for Greece, it's a matter of just like of being sort of careful enough in how you approach it. And maybe this comes into the selection thing. It doesn't even start with Ferguson and Obafemi. Is that viewed? I don't know what Shane thinks. Like, is that almost in danger of being too positive? Like, do you actually need a different presence, someone like Will Smallbone in there, who can help you retain possession a little bit better, and that's part of the debate. But I did feel when the draw happened for Ireland and there was a debate around formations and all this, like, take the Gibraltar game out of it. France at home, Greece away, France away, the Dutch at home. You could see why Ireland would play with a very similar system for all those games, albeit with little tweaks here and there.
Yeah. I've been very, very impressed with Smallbone, and if you were just making an argument for players, I would be able to make a pretty good argument for him. The only thing I would say is, and Dan has kind of touched on it, the one that I think could be the unexpected, if you could call him unexpected, could be Micah Johnson, because of, you look at the role of Bene, actually it's quite similar to what I said about Man City and a formation in possession and out of possession. Dan has kind of described it, I suppose, as our in possession formation was probably 3-5-2, our out of possession formation was 5-4-1, and because of Ogbene's running, he's able to play two roles. He was able to play as a strike partner to Evan Ferguson when we had it, and he was able to play essentially as a right winger when we didn't have it. And who has that skill set? Who has, Obafemi probably has it in him, in his legs. I'm not sure if he has it in him upstairs in terms of a want to give you that much work rate to go and play right wing when you don't have the ball.
He's no defensive mindset at all.
There we are. Like, that's what I meant now without saying it as bluntly. Whereas I think Mikey Johnson could be the one who could give you both. You say to him, look, you get right up there with Evan Ferguson, you play in around him, you try and stretch in behind when we're in possession of the ball, but when we don't, you get a shift on and you get right outside in front of Matt Doherty very, very quickly. So I would expect that he's the one. For me, it's a straight call between Knight and Smallbone. I don't think both can end up in the same team, because I don't see where the pace in behind comes from if those two end up getting paired together. I'm just getting a preview piece together on them actually for at the moment. So I was looking. The one thing that I think again makes it very interesting is these boys average a hell of a lot of possession. Like, they're always in and around the 60 plus possession. It was well over 60% against Northern Ireland.
That's not bad for us, Shane, either. I think. I think if Ireland, Stephen Kenny has to approach this game and throw away this kind of romanticism about owning the ball and all that. And I know we're not going to try to own the ball, but be happy to say that we are going to be content and sit back and use our pace on the break and see how the game develops, rather than trying to kind of impose ourselves early. Because if you're playing a possession team, it will be quite hot even at that hour of the night. Just feel it out and see how we're going, but don't we've had some bad performances against teams that are probably a bit inferior to us.
Yeah, but there's no doubt he's developed that side of it already, Johnny. I mean, he's put, I think, okay, first couple of games.
It wasn't long ago though, you know what I mean? It's like we've had bad away performances.
Oh yeah, no, what I'm saying is I think Stephen has evolved as an international manager, that it's not just, we're going to dominate possession and we're going to run around like headless chickens after them to get the ball back as quickly as possible. I think he's showed periods where he's been perfectly happy to sit off and let the opposition have the ball at times. But at the same time, I wouldn't think he'd be overly happy to if he's told before kick-off that Greece are going to have 60-65% of possession tonight. So it's trying to get that balance right between at times allowing them to have it, but at times making sure that we have enough of the ball. I mean, we shouldn't be just saying, okay, let's sacrifice the ball against Greece here and play purely on the counter.
Yeah, I don't mean that, because we have the players against Greece to have plenty of the ball, but I think we have to be very, very cognizant of the fact, don't concede here, be good at the back and make sure that we're in a position that if we go 1-0 up in this game, we're in a great position. But if we go 1-0 down, all the doubts will start creeping in again.
Yeah, and
it is that big of a game.
Oh, it is. Look, it is an absolutely massive game, and I suppose the argument I was trying to make when I saw the draw made initially, I think there is is there a perception that we should be winning this one?
We're not going to be odds on. I
would have thought a draw over there is a decent result. Personally, myself.
Yeah, it's probably just the nature of the group that has met it. I think if Ireland's second seed was, I don't know, Bosnia or something, we'd probably be talking about the group in a in a way that you'd be putting Bosnia and Greece in a similar enough bracket. That way of thinking, it's a good away point. But because it's France and Holland, you're just thinking you have to beat Greece. That's where it comes from, and it's not necessarily based on a reasonable expectation, but you're sort of thinking, as I said, if Ireland draw with Greece, which on its own is, as you said, I don't think you can argue would have been a bad result looking at the recent results, but then you're looking at September thinking Ireland have to win one of those games against France and Holland and probably not lose the other one, and even then you need to do something probably remarkable in Amsterdam in November. So that's the thing. I think with Ireland, you feel like this whole group revolves around getting to that game with Holland in Dublin in September, with them under a little bit of pressure, playing a little bit of catch up, and obviously winning, because they had the bad start against France and they got hammered and they had a change of manager. So you want to get the points on the board now, put the Dutch under a little bit of pressure. That to me is the only avenue to a top two finish. So I
think Ireland definitely have very, very good chance of beating the Dutch once, or at least getting something off them. They absolutely, the Dutch they're not an extremely good side, and Ireland were excellent against France. Really, with a bit of luck, should have nicked a draw.
I think Ireland under Kenny at times against so-called better teams have performed well. Portugal away and at home, but the inconsistency is the issue, and this is one of these inconsistency games in my head.
I wouldn't be worrying about the Dutch game per se. I'm worried about the Greece game, because as you say, JD, this one I don't really know what to expect from Ireland here, because there's a bit of an onus on us to win, which is probably a little bit unwarranted. It's in a hot country against a team that isn't bad, that will have a lot of the ball. The Dutch game, I don't really worry about us upping it against these big names that are very good, but the Greek game, that is my concern. And if we go 1-0 down and we give away a sloppy goal, some of the players are coming into the game in patchy form at club level as well. It's in that weird no man's land where it's at the end of the season, but it's quite a bit after the end of the season. So I am wary of it. I'm definitely worried.
I asked this question, JD, just as part of the narrative rather than pushing betting or anything like that. So I don't know, have you looked already? So I've just had a quick look. What price do you think we are to beat Greece this weekend?
We're probably I guess 15-8, 13-8.
So we're 9-4. All right.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd be that big. Okay, so we're actually long outsiders in the game.
And that's the reality, lads. And that's and again,
I'd probably back to 9-4.
And I keep saying this. I'm saying this as somebody who is, I suppose, behind Stephen, and somebody who thinks that Stephen is potentially doing a good job, and can continue to improve us and do a good job going forward. And because I think all that, I don't want people's perception to be, if we finish in the top two, Stephen has done a good job, and if we don't finish in the top two, Stephen hasn't done a good job. Because my honest opinion, JD, is I don't think we have a hope in hell of finishing in the top two. I don't think we've a hope in hell of finishing in the top 2. That's just based on the resources and based against the teams we've been drawn against.
Well, say the Dutch lose against France again, which going on the first game is very, very possible, right? And we don't know how it's going to work under Koeman, because they were shambles against France, right? So they could have a bad group. They just could. It's not out of the question.
Do you think we're possible to pick up more points off of the Dutch over 2 games than they're going to pick up off of us?
It's possible we get 4 points off the Dutch.
I really wouldn't
even
look at their team, Johnny. Look at our team. We're a million miles off.
The Dutch were shambles against France.
Yeah, but they didn't have an illness in the camp or something.
We're playing France.
Just look, they were 5-2. Yeah, 5-2 to win that game. I am going to back us at that. I'm more confident than that.
But I think the point is, I think the pressure that Kenny is under is not quite to finish in the top 2. I mean, obviously that would be ideal. It's just to have that degree of being competitive, to be there up till the end. Because I think most people know an Irish manager. I think most people reasonably would expect of an Irish manager, that to achieve something, you're generally upsetting the odds. I mean, this sort of ties in with this sort of the infrastructure stuff again. Like, as a nation, we've no right to deserve anything, with our football infrastructure, what it is. I think just the issue with Stephen is that he's had a lot of these big games in his time where the team have performed really well, but at one point you just need to get one of them over the line, just to make people believe that in reality, right, the most realistic scenario for Ireland and this Euros campaign is playing in a playoff next March because of the Nations League position, because of the way things are looking. Ireland, I think if you're doing your odds on that, you'd price up Ireland to probably get a playoff just on the basis of everywhere. Now, it's not guaranteed, but what it means is that next March, the chances are Ireland will be going in against teams that are, again, slightly better or similar level, or you might have one or two who are considerably better, and you have to believe that a Stephen Kenny team, when it comes to the crunch, can deliver a win in those matches. And I think probably that's why people are putting a big onus in some ways on the Greece thing. Yes, you have to have the discussion about the top 2, because that's I think that'll be the way Stephen Kenny will be speaking to his players. You have to believe that it's possible.
Yeah,
and the mad thing about it is,
go ahead.
The mad thing about it is that listen, the Dutch are miles better on paper in every way. The way the fixtures are ordered, right? The way things are lined up, the fact that France hammered them, when the French played them again, there is half a chance that Ireland could go to Holland in November within touching distance of them, and you have a shot at glory, right? That's why you're hoping, as much as it's unlikely. But I think there's probably pressure on Kenny to at least get his team to around that point being competitive, to inspire the belief that next March in a playoff scenario they can do it. And that's why these games, he just needs to get one of these wins on his list, because he just hasn't got them.
Pound for pound, that's the problem. The Portuguese team that we very nearly beat over there and drew against at home are probably every bit as good, if not better, than the Dutch team, right? And you will get international teams who are just not at it, who don't believe in the manager.
So how many points did we pick up against Portugal?
Yeah, but we were 5 points away from at least getting a draw. We played, and if Aaron Connolly actually had a bit of confidence in front of goal that night, we created chances. I don't think it's as outlandish, but the performance against France, I think Shane will agree with this. There's a lot of rubbish about the performance against France. Ireland were outstanding against France, that they mixed pragmatism and an actual ability to very nearly score at the end. And the stadium was buzzing that night. I've never experienced that.
You need to marry that with results.
So now we're in that place where we're in a very good place, but you need to marry it with at the very least a draw in Greece, because if we lose in Greece, we're in serious.
It'll fill 2 hours of radio.
We can't talk about the Saudis every week.
Well, Sam White has been in touch on YouTube. Lads, why don't you go to Newcastle and see for yourself? Mike Ashley didn't care, but everything about the Saudis, the people on the ground who liaise with the PIF care about the club. Hold on. Amanda Staveley fought to buy the club for nearly 5 years. She wanted it long before the PIF came on board, and the reality is that you'll never know how it feels unless you support the likes of Man City or Newcastle. I was loyal to the club under Ashley for 15 years. Why would I walk away now?
That's the thing, the contrast between the Saudis and Ashley. I mean, it's like yin and yang, but it wasn't exactly replacing a great regime, was it? He didn't want anything except to make money, and the Saudis they're spunking money away. They don't care about the money, but it's a completely different narrative. But they will run the club far better, absolutely. That's why I'm ashamed to admit I voted for a Saudi takeover of Galway United, because it was like, we have no assets here. I was told it had nothing to do with the regime. It was like, these are Saudi businessmen, they'll come in, they'll invest money. Galway United have zero assets. The only thing they had was the players were are worth no money. So I was like, let's see what's the worst that can happen. And I was ashamed to admit that I was sucked into that thing as well.
Language, Timothy. We have another text. Don't worry, Kenny will have the excuses ready. That's his biggest quality, says Mick.
Stop. I think he could have. I think genuinely his media performances have been a bit hit and miss. I think he makes too many kind of apologies.
I was there actually. I was there after the France game, and I asked the first two questions, and he just straight up about it. So
yeah,
I was encouraged by that.
Yeah, so, but the French game was kind of easy to explain because that was an excellent performance. It's more
he
so
was talking about the Latvia game there and talking about the brilliance of it, and I didn't really. Sometimes that can be a bit like it's not all brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely not. We conceded bad goals that night, but I think he's probably getting a bit better at that as well. And I really hope for him. I think he's a really good man. I love his philosophy on how he wants to play better. Bear in mind as well, we're going to have some very good underage players coming through who've played football really well for Ireland in passing teams, whoever the manager is going forward, and it's a lot bigger than Stephen Kenny, whoever is in charge in 10 years' time.
Dan, okay, this money that the FAI are looking for over the next 15 years, like 863 million, some of which will be raised by themselves, but they'll be looking for majority state investment, I believe 60%. I suppose the question I would have is the political will there for this to be, I suppose, realised?
Well, listen, that is the bottom line question. I think in political circles in recent years, I mean, I think Micheál Martin sat in that studio at one point talking to Joe, and I suppose at many points in I don't know, as long as I'm covering football, you would look to government at various stages and you chat to people then privately, and they would say, well, the FAI have never really come with a coherent plan for funding. Like, that would be a massive criticism, is that yes, you can have the perception that we need money and we'd like some money, please, and I suppose everyone says that, right? Like, every sport says that. The difference is that the FAI now have actually committed a plan to paper, a 15-year plan, and generally, like, the Irish football world, the discourse around it can be very cynical. I think it's a history of sitting through dreadful FAI presentations, which were in many cases just set up to sort of propagate on behalf of the one-time great leader, rather than actually debating the issues. And I think what's encouraging about the report this week is that it's a plan. It lays out what needs to be done. It doesn't sort of sugarcoat the reality. It sort of says things are terrible. Things are really bad. We have to admit that things are really bad. That is, you can debate why that is, but it is really bad. But here's what we can do. And at least if you present that to government, they can't say, well, they don't have a plan anymore. And is the political will there? I mean, I think there is an election around the corner. I think there are probably, from what you would hear, there probably are figures in government who are quite receptive to this. Whether that translates to the actual amounts that they're looking for, well, that's unclear. But I think in some ways to get bogged down too much into the detail of, they want 200 for this or 250 for that, the biggest step is to establish the principle that this is worth investing in, because other countries in Europe, like every country in Europe, plays football. Very few try to do it as cheaply as Ireland do, and then expect to compete and talk about qualifying for tournaments and stuff. So the principle has to be established that there's a value in trying to create better infrastructure and to create a football industry here. And if government commit to that, I think you can probably then debate how much they're willing to devote to it. But I think they've made a decent case, at least, at presenting that argument, because the point is made in the document. If we keep doing things as we're doing them at the moment, there's only one way things are going to go, and that's going to be down. And that's the reality. You cannot expect to compete in a global sport. Where you're looking at other countries of Estonia and Latvia. Never mind, we're talking about beating Greece and sort of competing with France and Netherlands. Look at Estonia and Latvia and people who have multiples of staff at their underage clubs than we do. With central government funding as well too. So we eventually have to decide: do we want to play football seriously in this country or not. The days of relying on the magic dust of a manager coming in and getting 11 players on the pitch and going and have a party for a summer and convincing ourselves everything is okay, those days are gone. And if you want to sort of build a better future, you probably have to get on board with a version of this. But I appreciate there may be different views on that.
The funny thing as well is, like Dan goes on about there, the political will and all that, and the Horse and Greyhound Fund has been there for so long. Charlie McCreevy brought it in, we'll say 2001 was it, and it's this like kind of notion, you can't really like obsess like the horsey set kind of thing. It was like there are no horse racing trainers hardly at all in Dublin. There are no horse racing trainers in large parts of the country. Football is everywhere in this country. Football is everywhere. Like, I was at home the last few days. Shivan Rovers in my parish have been absolutely massive. The role that they've played in the community, Shamrock Rovers came to play Galway United in a friendly there. Great facilities. Really, really proud of what we've done. Football is all over this country. Horse racing isn't. Horse racing is getting money because it's kind of accepted at this stage. But we're likely to have a Sinn Féin-led government in the next, the next election. I would imagine it's more likely than not. Sinn Féin, it traditionally was a working class party. There's nothing to be feared by giving football money that it is absolutely due at this stage, JD. We can't get away with this kind of situation where we just let players go to England and had really third world facilities in a first world country. It's not on anymore. The country is awash with cash. Absolutely, football deserves to get it.
Yeah, I'll be honest with JD. When this came out, I suppose I was in a position where you're kind of so busy with actual football stuff and other stuff that I kind of skimmed it. And such is Dan's standing in football that I just said, listen, I'll just wait and see what Dan makes of it. And if he's for it, well, then it's probably a reasonably good thing. I mean, in the sense of where is the money needed, I suppose the two most recent roles I would have had in football, I mean, the gaps are absolutely yawning. So if we take it as a League of Ireland First Division manager at the moment, I mean, Dan spoke earlier about stadiums. Okay, to be honest with you, I as the manager, very different from me compared to, say, Johnny going as a spectator, but me as a manager is not overly concerned with the infrastructure of the stadium. My concern is the lack of infrastructure we have in terms of training facilities. Okay, so we own nothing. We rent an AstroTurf pitch on a Monday night in Cobh, and we went to rent an AstroTurf pitch on a Wednesday night in Mayfield, and you're constantly paying out for these kind of facilities. Oh yeah. Now, to be fair, both facilities are working very well with us and giving us the best rate they possibly can, but it still adds up, as you can imagine. And that's just the first team, because bear in mind now you've got all these underage teams, so you're renting those facilities for every team in your club. So imagine how much that's mounting up to, and where that money could go if you were able to use it in a different way. But we have nothing that we can call our own. That also, John, creates like a culture. Even the fact that we have to train in two different places, you've nowhere that you can call home. There is no such thing as a home for us in terms of how we train and how you look at anybody who has their own facilities. You'll start to put up memorabilia around the place. You'll start to put up past teams. You'll start to create, like Shamrock Rovers at Roadstone is the ultimate example. Becomes a hub, exactly, and it starts to build your identity. We don't have that at Cobh Ramblers, and we really, really, really need it. And then if I go back to the previous role as Academy Director at Treaty, I mean, my God, John, you're trying to perform the miracle of the loaves and fishes. Like, it's you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 underage teams at boys level, 2 underage teams at girls level, 7 underage teams, right? Me as a marginally somewhere between part-time and full-time employee in the underage structure, and outside of me, vast majority of coaches getting 50 quid a week to cover their diesel to and from training, and you're trying to cater for all of those players, give them the best possible footballing upbringing you can possibly give them. Like, it's absolutely mission impossible. And like, if this gets buy-in, and if we're able to put proper infrastructures in terms of that player development pathway, again, I don't think anybody involved in underage football in Ireland expects to get rich on the back of it, but to be a serious person and to put the amount of time that needs to be put into this, if you're going to do it right, you have to be reasonably well bloody remunerated for the time that you're putting in there.
I think as well, we have this post-colonial relationship with England, which very much was when Ireland was a basket case economically, 40s, 50s, we sent all our sons and daughters to England, essentially, if not the States, with England to work, and football was kind of an offshoot of that. And now we have a situation where we're a very wealthy country, sports mad country, football is our biggest participant participation sport, and we're laughably behind in terms of everything, pretty much from the National League right down to underage to facilities. I think we've the talented. Colin O'Brien spoke about knowledge is power in terms of the coaches in this country. I have massive time for the coaching minds of this country and what they're doing at League of Ireland level, underage level in Ireland and down. But everything else, JD, we're laughably behind.
And Dan has pointed out before, like we are the people who are involved in underage development in this country are helping us punch so far above our weight.
Often volunteers.
Almost, well, certainly down at the lower levels with the Cobhs and the Treaties of the world, guaranteed to be volunteers, probably costing them a fortune to be doing this, to be honest with you, the amount of time and money that they're putting into investing in themselves and travelling.
They do that, JD, not to better themselves in terms of their own career, but they generally do it, I think, for the kids. I think they do. I think they actually have this aspiration that this football family thing, we want this for the kids. We want the kids to do better.
I spoke about how under-resourced the setup was at Treaty, and yet we played Treaty last night and you had 19-year-old Darren Nwanku starting at centre-back for them and excelling. Josh Quinlivan comes off the bench, Scott Kirtland comes off the bench, all still under 19 footballers, and it's like I'm the opposition manager, but I'm looking at this with almost a sense of pride in that, Jesus, how well are Treaty doing in terms of what? He won as well. And how well are Treaty doing in terms of producing players good enough for League of Ireland First Division football?
Danny, get the last word on this.
Yeah, and I just think the important point as well is that naturally, it probably given our interest, like it spins off into a discussion about the League of Ireland situation, and I'm well up for that. And I think there's talk about 140 million for academies in that, and I think there's an academy plan separately that's going to be rolled out later in the year. But probably just for people who maybe have glanced through this story or heard it in passing, like the main part of this survey for me, the most effective part that they got a survey of, like, I think 87% of clubs from around the country responded, and these were like grassroots clubs. And I mean, some of the stats, it's what Shane sort of touched on there, like more than half don't own their own grounds. I think 25% don't even qualify for sports capital funding because of their conditions. And I mean, the year that's in it, I think 38% don't have female friendly toilets. And like, we have a Women's World Cup coming this summer where every politician, if they go well or if not, they'll be falling over themselves to get on board behind it. Yet, and the reality is that almost half of grounds around the country where people start, they don't even have proper toilet facilities for them. So that, to me, is where you build your case. And with the horse racing, greyhound racing, betting tax stuff lately, which I would have been probably involved in covering a fair bit of that. Part of the rebuttal would be maybe from people in the horse racing world when they felt that they were being attacked was, well, FAI, go and make your own case for funding. Like, go and make your own case for funding and justify it. And I think they've probably made a decent stab at doing that, and they've sort of, probably in tennis parlance, they've knocked the ball back into the government's court now and say, are you willing to support this sport which loads of people play? They're going to continue to play it, but they do it in facilities. And sorry, the last point as well, I'm sure we probably get messages in, well, the FAI wasted this and the FAI wasted that, and it's absolutely true. Like, football has been let down by disgraceful administration, but the point with that is that, do you continue to punish like some imaginary people in Abbottstown for this, or do you punish all the people who play the game and will continue to play the game? And I think that's like the key point here, that when you're talking about funding for football, it's not about, and this is the problem with the largesse that existed before, people think that money's going there, where you have to clearly establish that this money can actually make a difference to a lot of people playing the game. And I sound like I'm sort of a propagandist for them, and I'm sort of uncomfortable with that, because that's not the type of, that's not the way it should be. But I think on this issue, there is a point here where football definitely has been under-resourced and is entitled to make its point.
Okay, I got to take a break. 53106. It'll be interesting to see the moral reaction to the event and all backed funder state try to buy an Irish club. Hi JD, would this new stadia thing not be solved if we just moved the Duns to Dublin once and for all and put them in Aircon Park? hashtag up the Saints. There's Mark and Tala, which was quite a funny one. And Kieran on Twitter, I want the rose glasses Johnny's looking through. Ireland will finish fourth in the group. Kenny's had more time than anyone ever had in world football. Manager who can max out players' abilities is needed. It's not Kenny, it never was.
Yeah, well, I think if Ireland finish fourth, I don't think Stephen Kenny even will go into the meeting and make a massive case that, you know, he has been given the time 100%. You know, football, the qualification groups are so short. Luck can play a massive part, but at the same time, and he's had his chance, absolutely. So this is his time to deliver, absolutely.
Into the final set in France, Świątek 3, Makova 3. We're back after this.
Off the ball on News Talk.
Who'll call you out in your nonsense and give you it brutally straight, but knows when to shut up and listen, take your side, empathise, advocate? Who can you fight half the night with about a story, a band or a team? Who'll push your buttons and drive you so mad, but still make you laugh, think and dream? With whom can you pick up right where you left off and never have to pretend? Who's 24/7 and 365, always there for you? Yeah, we're that friend.
News Talk. Conversation that counts.
Taste of Dublin returns for 2023 to Dublin's beautiful Ivy Gardens this June 15th to 18th. Experience Ireland's best chefs, hottest restaurants, culinary masterclasses, artisan producers and incredible live entertainment. The ultimate fun foodie day out this summer. Book your tickets now at tasteofdublin.ie. Booking fees apply.
Go 5G with Gomo. Get ready to connect faster, better, stronger than ever before with Gomo's unlimited 5G speeds available across Ireland. And you know it's Gomo, so you know all calls, all texts, all data, and all 5G are included for just $14.99 a month for life. For more, visit gomo.ie. It's time to go 5G. It's time to Gomo. Unlimited allowance subject to fair use. 30-day contract applies. A once-off SIM activation fee of $14.99 applies. For full details, terms, roaming, and fair use, see gomo.ie.
Hi, I'm Ken Doherty. For all van drivers and business owners, InsureMyVan.ie is Ireland's low-cost van and commercial insurance specialist. For high-quality van and all commercial insurances, call InsureMyVan.ie.
City Financial Marketing Group Limited, trading as InsureMyVan.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Now is the time to experience all-electric driving for yourself with the Volkswagen Experience Electric Sales Event from the 9th to the 17th of June at your local Volkswagen retailer. Discover our all-electric cars, charging solutions, government incentives, and our latest market-leading 232 offers. Plus, test drive the Volkswagen ID range, Ireland's best-selling all-electric cars. Available for immediate delivery at your local Volkswagen retailer. Search Volkswagen ID. Volkswagen. Best-selling claim based on latest published figures.
Bake it, braise it, roast it, grill it, steam it, stir it, whisk it, and with Neff, get closer to it. Everything we do is carefully designed to help creative cooks cook. Like our unique Neff slide and hide oven, the oven with the disappearing door that slides effortlessly under the cavity. So get closer to your cooking with Neff. Search Neff ovens today.
At Centra, feel good and shop smart with great offers. Like selected barbecue meats, mix and match any 3 for €10. Selected Nestle cereals, 500 to 720 gram, half price. And Coors and Heineken 12 bottle packs, €17 each. Centra, live every day. Enjoy, call sensibly.
For Bridget Price, the road to love was not so straightforward.
Bridgie, I forbid you from marrying that spendthrift youth, Miles Carr.
What the devil is that?
I'm setting up an M50 video account on my mobile cellular telephone, thus procuring a discount on the M50 highway toll path.
Very prudent, Mr. Carr. It seems I've misjudged you.
eFlow presents Accounts and Accountability. Pay your tolls automatically and get a discount with a free M50 video tolling account at eflow.ie.
This summer, Kaleidoscope welcomes Nile Rodgers and Chic, Gavin James, Bewitched, Fun-Loving Criminals, Newton Faulkner, Dublin Gospel Choir and more. Join us for 3 days of family fun in Wicklow's Russborough House from June 30th to July 2nd. Tickets start from only €250 for a family of 4 camping. Plus, kids go free on adult day tickets. Available on Ticketmaster. For more, visit kaleidoscopefestival.ie. Additional charges may apply. Terms and conditions apply, subject to licence.
Looking for a memorable getaway? Look no further.
This summer, live the moment at Castleknock Hotel. Immerse yourself in our stylish rooms, unwind by the pool, savour mouth-watering cuisine at our award-winning restaurant, or embrace the lively ambience of our 2 sun-filled patios. And when it's time to explore, our prime location puts you right in the heart of the action. Explore more at castleknockhotel.com.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
This is Off the Ball Saturday, John Duggan till 5 with Dan McDonnell in Turkey from the Irish Independent at the Irish training camp ahead of the Greece game next Friday. Shane Keegan, Cobh Ramblers, Boston studio with Johnny Ward, the broadcaster and journalist. Shelbourne beat Wexford Youths 5-0 in the Women's Premier Division. Bohemians lead Cork 2-0. It's Dealor Waves 0, Treaty United 0. Shamrock Rovers and Peamount just about to kick off. Offaly won 7, Wexford 10 points in the Charlton Cup preliminary quarter final at O'Connor Park. The minor football quarter finals, Kerry beat Kildare 2-13 to 1-11. Dublin edged Cork 1-18 to 2-12. At the moment, Derry 1-9, Galway 4 points. Ronan O'Gara's La Rochelle 14, Bordeaux 3 in the top 14 playoff semi-final, and they're into the final set between Swiatek and Makova in the French Open women's final, and Makova is 4-3 up and a break up in that one. And Postecoglou, Shane Keegan, discuss.
I am. What are you laughing at?
It's just Spurs. It's just like, it's the hope that you don't even ever have hope.
This is when Dan and Johnny tune out for 5 minutes.
I am very excited by the idea, JD. Yeah, I am. I think it's a risk. It's a risk for a number of reasons. I'll come back to them, but I'll give you why I'm excited first and foremost. I'm excited because we were served up. I sound like such a supporter here. Well, I am a supporter. We were served up an awful style of football last season. Absolutely awful. And I was saying that when we were 4th in the table, never mind when we started to go into free fall. There are few managers in world football as married to their style of play as Postecoglou is. He is, and he just sums it up. I think his phrase that he always uses, four words, is keep it on the ground, and he will absolutely attempt to play exciting passing football 100%. It will be extremely high intensity. I think we'll have casualties at Tottenham on the back of that. Harry Kane be one of them? I think they have to do everything they possibly can to hold on to him. And I think Postecoglou will want to build a team around him, because you can have all the high intensity running.
You only want to be holding on to him if he wants to stay, because if he doesn't want to stay and he leaves in a year, that's 80 to 100 million you've lost.
Yeah. Agreed. And it's up to Postecoglou and up to the board by the signings that they make over as quickly as possible to give him reason to want to stay. But look, there is certainly potential for fireworks, I think, on a couple of fronts. For want of a better way of putting it, he is a proven manager of likes to speak truth to power, and that could obviously have issues, that's for sure. And the other thing is that training regime is supposed to be as tough comes, which has led to, by the way, and this is the other thing, has led to at most of his clubs, JD, if you look back at the history, at most of his clubs it's been a slow start. It's taken a while to bed in, because he whips them so hard at the start that they're almost kind of tired of not knowing where they are. I think you
need 5 to 10 players to do that, because Eric Dyer, Davinson Sanchez, Clement Longley, they ain't going to be able for it tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there is going to have to be a big turnover in player, and I assume those discussions were had before he was appointed. I would think he has already given a list of his I'll have and I'll have not. I think there's definitely going to need to be a big turnover there. But this, and I know it's said about everybody going in, like, this has to be given time, Jeddy. This absolutely, and money. It has to be given time and money. But I think, supporters, I think by and large, Spurs supporters will have moaned so long and so hard about the style of play that I would like to think, if the early style of play is good but results maybe aren't quite there, hopefully supporters will be clued enough in.
Well, they won't be blaming Ange, they'll be blaming Levy if that's the case.
Yeah. But I do think they need to go, okay, well, we've asked for this style of football. It's not just, you can't just flick a switch and immediately get an improved style of football. So if it's going to take half a season, and if it means one more season, if it means the first season under Postecoglou doesn't get Champions League football, I'd nearly accept that for the first season, to be honest with you, in hope of the greater good in the longer term with him.
Alexis McAllister moved to Liverpool during the week. You said you read something about him.
There's a fantastic piece in The Athletic. Like, I know The Athletic, obviously, it's an interesting kind of
deep dives.
This is proper deep dive. Like, it goes, apologies, I can't remember the writer. I'm not sure if he actually went to Argentina, but he did all bar go if he didn't go. And like McAllister's background, his brothers' names are Kevin and like Steve or something. Like it's Francis and Kevin. Like, so they've this like weird kind of background where there's an Irish pedigree, and I'd say there could be like Scotch-Irish because the McAllister name, and it was maybe like, but we dealt with that a bit during the World Cup. But the story of
Home Alone fans,
big Home Alone, yeah, there we go. Kevin, but the story of him, and like, I hope you don't mind me asking, but Shane tells me about his son who's developing an extremely rare knack to run, and so he can run 2 kilometres in.
A bit of a tangent now, Johnny.
He can run 2 kilometres in.
Johnny,
7:46. So Shane, now if you were a dad of a kid who's shown promise, it makes such a difference that if you can kind of the parenting of the kid is so important. And McAllister's upbringing was that's the reason he became a footballer, because his dad was a footballer. The kids all became footballers. They were playing football very, very early, and he was just technically better than they used to say about his dad. If his dad could head the ball, go into a tackle with his head or his foot, he'd go in with his head because he was all bravery. But McAllister developed technical ability. Riquelme was his kind of his like hero growing up, and like he would have gone through clubs that had like Redondo as well, Riquelme, and I think Maradona as well. So he had this kind of upbringing. But what really shines through in the article, JD, is what a beautiful, humble guy he is, and he just loves playing football. And Liverpool are going to get like a brilliant personality, but I dare say they need a lot more than McAllister to challenge or to be anywhere near.
3 or 4 of them in the middle of the park.
midfield alone.
Yeah.
But it's a great piece.
Dan, just before we go, Shane Duffy going to Norwich, will that kind of revitalise his career, do you think?
Well, you would hope so. I mean, nothing could be worse than last season when he basically didn't play at all for Fulham, bar a couple of 1-minute cameos here and there. David Wagner, the manager, I was looking previously when he was manager of Huddersfield when they got promoted. He had 2 big centre halves in the back 4. That was his preferred system at that time. I just can't think of their names. It was an Austrian fella, I think. It was like 6'4", 6'5". So, clearly. Stephen Kenny, when he suggested recently that Duffy was close to a move, the message he had from Duffy was that it seemed like this manager was happy to build a team around him. So clearly Duffy's not just been signed on a deal because of experience and throw him in for a year and see what happens. It seems like he might get a proper chance to play with a team who presumably is going to be structured in a particular way that they need someone with his attributes. They're going to play to his best attributes. So if that proves to be the case, brilliant, because Shane Duffy is still, he's 31 now at the moment, so he's got time on his side still to make the best of the rest of his career, and probably from his perspective he'd hope to play himself back into the Ireland squad at least.
Coleman being offered a new deal.
Yeah, sure,
like absolutely. Honestly, I've written James Coleman off for years at this stage. I can't get over how he, like, his performance against France, his performance for Everton. He's an amazing like the injury that he had, we all remember the images of it. I honestly think he's one of Ireland's best sportsmen ever for what he's achieved.
100%.
And a nice message from Shane Duffy about David Moyes, wasn't it, during the week after the Conference League win, and that kind of says trophies do matter still. They still matter. It doesn't matter what the level is, they matter. And you see the way the West Ham players and David Moyes celebrated that. So Dan, what's the plan now? Just very briefly, about a minute. What's the plan then for the next few days? When do they go to Greece?
They go to Greece I'm not sure when they're travelling. I think it's Wednesday that they travel. So Stephen Kenny is doing press over the next couple of days, a couple of the players. So we've got three days of media stuff now building up towards travelling to Athens. I'm travelling late on Tuesday night. I think the team are travelling on Wednesday. And there we go. Yeah.
What are you up to on a Saturday night in Antalya, Dan?
Presumably find somewhere to watch the Champions League final. I mean, Liz, I presume State TV will have it on, given the given the way things are. No Wikipedia over here, so I can't do any work.
Right. Okay. What's the prediction, Dan?
City to win, but half-time draw, City to win.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
See you, lads.
What's your prediction, JD?
Manchester City 2-0. Yours?
I'll go 3-0. I think they'll it depends, like Shane says, on who scores, like how early the first goal is, because all bets are kind of off then. But I definitely think Ireland are a bet at that price to beat Greece. Would you agree, Shane? Big outsiders, like.
Yeah,
you're not
giving any.
You'd hope
you're
for
surprised at the odds, though. There you go.
You'd hope for a draw.
No. I was saying the odds to me show that we are like our expectation. I think expectations are way out of kilter with reality.
Prediction tonight.
In line with pretty much what yourself and Dan both said. I think they will eventually find a way, but I think they could have to wait an hour before getting one, and then I think they'll get a second 2-0.
Shane Keegan, Cobh Ramblers manager, and Johnny Ward, thank you so much.
Thanks
JD. Thank you for listening, folks. We've got to leave it there. Don't forget, Off the Ball back tomorrow 1 to 7 here on News Talk. Joe Malloy and Stephen Doyle in the chair. We'll have Tommy Walsh at Croke Park for Kilkenny Galway, James O'Connor as well at the Gaelic Grounds for Limerick against Clare. There's a Sunday paper review as well, and Keith Tracy will review the Champions League final. Be sure to tune in, even nearly there, to Joe and Stephen tomorrow, 1 o'clock start. Missed any of OTB Football Saturday with Shane Keegan, Dan McDonnell and Johnny Ward, or our hurling preview with Owen Kelly, Brian Hogan and TJ Ryan, you can find the podcasts on the Off the Ball section of the Go Loud Network, or be sure to listen back wherever you get your pods. Thank you so much for listening to us on your radio across the country here on News Talk Today. We will speak tomorrow at 1. Bye bye.